The safety is off. There's a round in the chamber. This is Armed Alabama. Sponsored by McCoy Outdoor Company, Mobile's hometown full-line outdoor sporting products and gear store. An interactive talk show discussing self-defense, product reviews, shooting tips, safety, and more. Your calls, comments, and texts welcome at 343-0106. Now, here are your hosts, retired judge and certified NRA instructor Rusty Johnston and certified NRA law enforcement instructor Adam Strange.
Where the city lights don't shine, I live my life the simple way, and you know I'm doing just fine. I fish, I hunt, and I shoot my guns, and I raise a little hell. The things I do, you know I do them well. This is my America, and I'm so proud. I don't mind, I say it loud. This is my America, God bless America, land of the free, because of the brave. This is my America.
Good evening. It's time for the Armed Alabama Show, and this is retired circuit court judge and NRA certified instructor Rusty Johnston, your host tonight. My partner Adam Strange has the night off. If you have never heard Armed Alabama, you need to start listening. That's every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. right here on FM Talk 106.5. You can also, if you're out of the listening area, listen on FM Talk 106.5's website, or that's, of course, you can either put the WWN or not, fmtalk1065.com, or you can listen on the Armed Alabama Radio website. That's www.armedalabama.com. Armed Alabama is the only firearms-based FM talk show that originates from the state of Alabama. We talk about pistols, revolvers, shotguns, concealed carry, ammunition, training, and attacks on our God-given right to protect ourselves and our families. If you will, we're on Facebook right now, and the Facebook page name, if you haven't subscribed to it, is Armed Alabama Radio, FM Talk 1065. And just put that in the search engine, you'll get there, and you should see me somewhere on the page. We'll keep a watch on that. If you have a question you'd like to ask, you can put it there, or if you want to text a question into the station, or call it in, of course, that's 251-343-0106. And as I say, tonight is trivia night. We're going to have some trivia, also going to give away a few prizes, but there's so much out there, so much misinformation that I constantly see regarding firearms, the law, guns, everything. For instance, so many times people will say, oh, I got home and I found out my house had been robbed. Well, your house can't be robbed. It's burglarized. The difference between burglary and robbery is this. You could be burglarized and be sleeping or not even there, not even know it. That's when someone illegally enters your home with the intention to commit a felony, which theft it could be, or an assault, murder, rape. But a robbery is when someone uses force or the threat of force to deprive you of your property. So you're going to know when you've been robbed. But you can be robbed at your home, of course. Somebody knocks on the door, busts in, and pulls a gun on you and says, give me all your, gold coins or cash or drugs or whatever you have there. But that is really common, burglary and robbery. So try to get that one right. That's a robbery. Both burglary 1 and robbery 1 are both Class A felonies. And by the way, when we talk about Class A felonies, most people in the state think that we have a 3 strikes and you're outlaw. You probably thought that, Charlie. Once you committed
I've heard that.
3 felonies, that's the end of you. Well, not really. It's a lot more complicated than that. The last felony has to be a Class A, and for instance, when I was on the bench, I had one person with 27 prior felonies, convictions, and he was not eligible to be given life without. So,
now, are there any instances where there are sentencing guidelines where it's automatic? If you do this, you're sentenced to this?
Yeah.
Or does the judge have some discretion, or the jury have some discretion?
Well, he in almost every case, he or she, the judge, has discretion. There may be a dozen cases where you are supposed to sentence. Like one of them is someone who is a drug, I can't think of the name right, a trafficker. Mm-hmm. You're supposed to impose a $50,000 fine. Well, I never had anybody for anything that could have begun to pay a $50,000 fine. And but if you, let's say, decide as a judge, violate your oath and decide, I'm just not going to put that in there, sometimes it usually won't be caught, but a lot of times the smart aleck defendant, I'm going to appeal that conviction. The conviction might get affirmed, but the appeals court said, and the lower court forgot to add the $50,000. I had that one. Forgot to add the $50,000, which we're doing right now.
What happens if you can't pay the $50,000?
Well, you can't. We don't have debtors' prison, obviously.
That's right.
And
right.
What I'll tell you, the practical way that I did it is, let's say somebody was just on probation; they weren't in the penitentiary. You normally sentence them. You have to sentence them to court cost. If it's one felony case, that's around $400. I generally never sentence them to a fine. And let's say there was $1,000 restitution.
Right.
They broke into somebody's car. What I would do is I'd kind of find out a little bit about them. What kind of work did you do in the past? Oh, I was a laborer. What's best you ever made? Well, $1,800 a month. And I'd say, well, I want you to start paying $75 a month. That is it'll be a violation of the term of probation if you don't pay it. And then I'd enter an order that the restitution gets paid first, because I'd want the victim to get their money first, unless it was, Citibank or something like that. And then they would pay back the court cost, which in theory helps pay the cost of running the court system.
Sometimes you take an average person and you say, all right, you're guilty and you got to go some years in the penitentiary plus a $50,000 fine, knowing full well that $50,000 is never going to see the light of day.
It's one of those things that legislators proposed because they sounded tough on crime when they did it. To show you the difference, misdemeanor traffic offenses usually get paid upwards of 95% in full. That's because people want to keep their driver's license.
Sure.
But felony fines and court costs, it's in the order of 15% that they get paid, because you got somebody, and if somebody is really trying to turn around, you don't want to put $500 a month on them. And I've seen judges that have done that, and I thought, it's just not going to work.
That's just going to guarantee recidivism.
Yeah, he's going to go out and steal $500 worth
and go right back to jail again.
Exactly. But folks, tonight I've got some trivia. Some I'm going to give away prizes on, some not. And I think we will on this first one to kind of get things started. Remember our number here. You need to call in. It's 251-343-0106. There are a number of cartridges, or most people would say bullets, but the whole thing is the bullet is really what shoots. Cartridge is the whole thing. That the term ACP is used after them, such as a 45 ACP, 32 ACP, etc. If you can tell me what the ACP stands for, ACP, you can win a Brownells. Brownells is a company that sells a lot of things, but they also make a very good brand of AR-15 magazine. It's a 30-round magazine with a chrome silicone spring, and I think it's got a follower that's made by Bagpull. Anyway, brand new, never been opened. If you can tell me what ACP means.
First caller that can do that.
First caller that can do that and tell me that, then you will win one, and we'll either mail it to you or let you drop by the station here. And want to remind everybody, Buck Allen sings our intro song. And this show, our main sponsor is McCoy Outdoors. You could go by and get some of your ACP ammo at McCoy Outdoor. Of course, get anything else you want there, too. McCoy Outdoors is located on Spring Hill Avenue, just west of I-65. And what was the old K&B drugstore, I think K&B is out of business now, I'm pretty sure. Like everything, they have been conglomerated and bought up and everything else, which is kind of sad. Remember, again, our question is ACP. What does that mean? Like a 25 ACP, 32 ACP, 380 ACP, 45 ACP. There are a number of ACP designations after a cartridge.
Google it if you must.
Yeah, Google it if you must, but somebody's going to beat you.
But if you're a real expert, you already know.
And, Charlie, I don't have the thing up here that shows if anybody's on the phone, so you need to tell me. If
okay, we'll do it.
We're going to go to a break. We'll be right back, folks, with more of Armed Alabama.
Call now.
This program is a production of Armed Alabama, LLC. The comments and views of the hosts are those of Armed Alabama, LLC, for which it is solely responsible. The view and comments of the callers, guests, and texters do not necessarily represent the views of the sponsors or advertisers of Armed Alabama, LLC, or of Armed Alabama, LLC, Bigler Broadcasting, LLC, FM Talk 1065, or WAVH. No comments from Judge Rusty Johnston should be taken as legal advice, but as educational information. Judge Johnston is not engaged in the practice of law and should not be sought out to answer legal questions off the air. Seek legal advice from a qualified attorney who knows the complete specifics of your legal matter.
Step up to the firing line. Armed Alabama is back. Questions, comments, and texts at 343-0106.
Well, to tell you the truth, in all this excitement, I've kind of lost track myself. But being this is a 44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world, and would blow your head clean off, you've got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, Bunk?
Dirty Harry, of course, never used an ACP. This is Judge Rusty Johnston back with Armed Alabama. We threw a trivia question out. What does ACP mean after a cartridge? And we've got Mark on the line who may be a winner. Hey, Mark.
Hey, Judge, how are you tonight?
Pretty good. What you know? What's ACP?
I think ACP stands for Automatic Colt Pistol.
You got it. Don't hang up. We'll talk for however long you want to, but I want Phil to get your address or name. If you want to pick it up, we just need your name, but we can easily mail it to you.
All right. Did you have to Google it or did you know?
Well, I actually knew because of the 45 ACP.
There you go. And I meant to bring a 45 ACP cartridge and a 45 Colt to show the difference, and for some reason I only wound up with a 45 Colt if you're watching on Facebook. But yeah, there's a little difference in there, and there are a lot of ACPs, and even though they're ACP for Colt, Browning actually designed a lot of them. But
and Judge, what is Mark getting for his effort?
He is getting a AR-15 magazine, which he desperately needs. He can't have enough of those. From Brownells, it's an old-time aluminum. I say old-time, it's brand new, but it has a Magpul follower and chrome silicon spring in it. And it is from Brownells, 30 rounds. It'll fit any AR-15 there is. Mark, you want to say anything else?
Well, that'll fit well in my Colt.
I know.
AR-15.
It sure will. Hold on and let Phil get your address, even though I'm pretty sure I know it, and we'll get that to you.
All right. Hold on, Mark. Okay.
Yeah, ACP. They're, like I said, 25, 32. 32 was a big caliber, but it isn't big, but was a widespread use caliber in Europe from about 1900 to the 60s.
Those only work in Colt pistols?
No, they'll work in anything. They're just that's just the designation. Yeah,
that's particular cartridge.
That's a good question because you could have a 32. I have somewhere a Beretta Tomcat, and it takes 7.65 or more popularly the 32 ACP, and it'll work in all of them. But 32 ACP was a big police caliber in Europe until I guess we always came in with a 45 or something like that and embarrassed them, so they upped theirs now, which we've kind of settled on 9mm for about everything. I'm going to throw out just a couple of things I'm going to answer myself, but I'm going to give you the good trivias. And in my case that I forgot to bring was a replica of the gun they call the Peacemaker. That's the gun that won the West. And that was the model 1873 Colt, or the Colt 1873 Single Action Army, and you've seen that.
It was single action.
Yeah, and what is single action, and also the cylinder doesn't swing out, so you've got to kind of half cock it and then rotate the cylinder
and drop the
either
shells
drop your cartridge or adding the cartridge. And the word always was that the gunfighters put a $20 bill in the empty. You should have an empty cylinder right under the hammer in case you fall off the horse or something. But they kept $20 bill in there to bury them.
I want to ask you a question because I see in the cowboy movies, I guess they're using some Peacemakers, or models of them.
Yeah,
I bought a Heritage single action .22 revolver with a long barrel.
Yeah,
and it kind of is that same style.
Well, it probably is. Heritage makes reproductions, a lot of famous guns.
It was only about $125. It was not expensive
and
at all.
if you don't want it, the original, like say on the Peacemaker, was the 45 long Colt. But if I don't want all that recoil. They make them in 22s.
And this one will also accommodate a 32.
Yeah.
If I send off for the
they make a lot.
chamber.
I'm trying to think of the. I can't ever think of the Italian company that when I make. But they're actually, you can get pretty. Of course, you can get from time to time Colt itself manufactures the model 1873, and it probably worth getting that. But I got for I think $400 or $500 my Umberti.
So when they got in a gunfight, did they fan the hammer? Is that what they had to do? Action is kind of slow.
Yeah, I don't think they really. Of course, I think most of the gunfights were one of them ambushing the other and shooting him in the back of the head.
You mean? Wait a minute now. You're saying the old thing about.
I don't think there was a lot of honor.
Standing facing each other.
Right.
And unsnap the holster and
I don't think all that happened. Except I did see the opening, because I was going to use it on one of our videos, of James Arness in Gunsmoke, where he, saying, pow, and he just keeps his gun up and the guy drops to the floor.
Well, a lot of those pistols were not that accurate over any distance.
Absolutely. I tell you what, now, of course, my is Umberti. I guess it's Uberti. I think that's how you spell it. And oddly enough, I'd say there's several, Beretta being another one, and I think Beretta may own Umberti, but they make a lot of reproductions. And that gun I have, which should have come tonight, I think is a 5.5-inch barrel, and it is, now you're not going to speed, it's not going to help you on that, but if you're just at a certain distance, it's the most accurate gun I have. Now, it may be because it has the longest barrel I have, accurate pistol I have.
Can I ask a historic question?
Yeah.
Because you're really a much bigger student of history than I am. In the Aaron Burr-Alexander Hamilton duel,
yes.
Now those were those pistol balls that
they
were shooting?
Those were.
So those weren't too accurate.
Right.
So did they both draw simultaneously, or did one person get to shoot first?
Yeah, we're going by
the other one,
hearsay, because
other one, they took turns shooting until one of them got hit.
They kind of would do that. Supposedly, everybody wants to make Burr out. Burr out as the villain, and Hamilton was a scoundrel. We're lucky he was killed.
I don't know who slapped who.
In other words, if you like trillions of dollars in national debt, you would love Alexander Hamilton.
That's why he's on our.
He invented the national debt. And the best Secretary of the Treasury and longest serving was not Alexander Hamilton. It was Albert Gallatin, and his statue is also on one side of the Treasury. But all that aside, they could fire simultaneously, but what happened is, I recall, I hope I'm not getting my duels mixed up, is I think Hamilton fired, and then then Burr, who was supposedly Hamilton had been in many more duels than Burr. You know, he's all blamed on
to tell it.
Burr. But then Burr got him at that time. But lots of times they would come up with have a secret agreement. We're both going to fire and miss, and then we won't be called cowards.
See, it was some kind of gentlemanly agreement, even though the duel was to satisfy an argument.
Well, you know, I've contended, and both of my former DAs agree with me, we ought to legalize dueling. Dueling happens all the time now. Now it's
we
in
call
some
it drive-by.
Oh, that or some bar Saturday night where somebody cracked somebody in the head with a bottle. At least this had rules. And then, like you say, sane people sometimes figured out a way to solve the issue besides killing each other.
So the gentlemanly rule says, no, you shoot first. No, you shoot first.
Yeah. By the way, did you know Aaron Burr's father was the president of Princeton. His grandfather was John Witherspoon, who was a great evangelist, and he actually started the Chase Manhattan Bank. Aaron Burr did.
Wow.
He's the one. Jefferson got in a big to-do with him, which is unfortunate. But he's a lot. People ought to re-examine Aaron Burr. He has gotten a very bad name, mainly from the supporters of Alexander Hamilton, who, like I say, I can't say enough bad about Hamilton. Hamilton's the kind of guy that wrote promoting the Constitution. The only thing Congress would be able to do, or the new government, is what's explicitly written down in the Constitution. The minute it was affirmed and he became aide to George Washington, President Washington, he said, we can pass a law creating a national bank. Well, it's not in the Constitution. Well, that's one of those things, general welfare,
it was assumed.
That's going to help everybody.
Yeah.
That arms company I was telling you about is A. Uberti, Uberti, and they've got a good web page, and they make
Italian.
They're an Italian company, which I've never understood why, but they make a lot of. I think most of their guns, if not all, are reproductions of Old West guns, which is kind of interesting. Maybe that's where the spaghetti westerns come from. That our friend Clint Eastwood.
I was going to say, if I was going to ever do open carry, I'd want Clint's gun.
Oh yeah.
So I could blow somebody's head clean off.
Clean off. That's with the 44 Magnum, I think. Here's a good one that we'll throw out for another AR-15 magazine. What was James Bond's original pistol in the Bond movies? Now, it changed later on. But
you're talking about in Dr. No, the first movie?
Yeah, Dr. No would be what was either – well, I want the name of the pistol, and it ought to be pretty easy. James Bond's original pistol, because by the end he was using something else. So if you know that, give us a call at 251-343-0106.
And what is the prize again?
And the prize is a Brownells, that's the name of a company, AR-15 magazine. And they make a good magazine. You ought to check them out sometimes.
And it's a 30 cartridge capacity?
Yeah, 30 cartridge. High capacity, they would say.
Yeah.
Now, Charlie, what have we got, about a minute?
About 40 seconds.
Okay. I've got, if you're on Facebook, a 223 Remington, which will shoot AR-15. I've also got a 5.56 NATO. Interesting thing, and I've told Charlie this about the NATO round, is where it's neck down, and you'll see this in almost all 5.56s, is kind of burnished or burned looking.
Yeah, right at the top of the brass.
Right, and it's supposedly done to keep out environmental products or whatever. But you can always tell the difference. Nice, shiny 223, which will fire in the 5.56 rifle, or the 5.56, this burnished.
And
Step up to the firing line. Armed Alabama is back. Questions, comments, and texts at 343-0106.
Survival kit contents check. In them you'll find 145 caliber automatic, 2 boxes of ammunition, 4 days concentrated emergency rations, 1 drug issue containing antibiotics, morphine, vitamin pills, pep pills, sleeping pills, tranquilizer pills, 1 miniature combination Russian phrase book and Bible, $100 in rubles, $100 in gold, 9 packs of chewing gum, 1 issue of prophylactics, 3 lipsticks, 3 pair of nylon stockings.
Well, I could have a pretty good time in Vegas with all that stuff.
Absolutely.
Slim Whitman and Dr. Strangelove. Okay, we got Cal, who's first in line to answer our question. What was James Bond's original pistol?
Hey, and before Cal answers, Judge, I'd like to ask other callers that are behind him in the lineup, if somebody ahead of you gets the answer, stay on the line.
Stay on the line.
I
have more questions I may ask, or Cal may be wrong. Hey, Cal, how you doing?
I'm outstanding. How you doing, Judge?
Pretty good. What do you think?
Was it a Walther PPK?
You got it. And didn't ask this, but I'll just throw it in just for trivia. His was a 32 ACP, which, is as I said earlier, that was kind of the gun in Europe, and for a long time. I think at the end he had a Walther P5, which is a 9mm, but you got it. And
Judge, I think they eventually made him turn in the Walther for a Beretta.
I thought, I didn't get into it enough, but I something was hitting me in the back of my mind about that. I think you're exactly right.
All right, Cal, tell the truth. Did you have to Google it?
No, I didn't. I didn't at all, Charlie. It's way too many times watching those movies.
Yeah, there's some. I'm not. I mean, I watched them, but I'm not really a Bond person, and but some people really are.
I remember when Dr. No came out and went to the theater and saw it, and I thought, God, this guy is the coolest man on the planet. Now, if you look back at Dr. No, it's stilted and corny. And wondered why anybody would ever want to watch it, but it's
Cal, who was the best? If you're still there, who was the best James Bond, the actor?
I've got to say, I think it was probably Goldfinger.
Yeah, that's really the first one I remember seeing.
Yeah,
and I remember we even had the album at the house. Goldfinger. Hey, I guess was that a Sean Connery?
Yeah, Goldfinger.
That was still Sean Connery.
Yeah. Who do you think the best Bond actor was?
It was Connery.
Yeah, I think so too. And we're probably saying that because he was the original.
He set the mold,
but he did a great job. Cal, if you'll hold on, Phil will get your address and all, and we'll get this to you. Thank you.
And let's go over to line 3, Judge.
Hey, Jimmy, do you have an answer to that question, or do you want me to? I'll give you another one.
Well,
Cal just won that
one.
He
had a Beretta 32 ACC, and he went to the Walther PPK 380.
Well, see, I think that might be debatable, but I tell you what, we're going to give that to you because that's in the back of my mind somewhere because I had that same Beretta that he had, and it was billed as that gun. And, it's like a lot of things. The book becomes a little different than the movie and all that kind of stuff.
Hey, Cal, you need to call back. Phil didn't get your information.
Yeah, Cal, if you'll call back with your name and address. Who do you think, Johnny, was the best Bond actor?
So, Jimmy, Sean Connery by far.
Yeah, I think so.
I thought he had an 81 Beretta 32 ACP, and then they made him have a Walther 380 PPK.
Well, the interesting thing was, too, that there was some difference between the books, the Ian Fleming books, and the movie. Yep. Of course, as show Hollywood is, they'll screw up anything. Watch how many times.
That might be what it is. It's Hollywood that got me screwed up.
They will. Watch how many times you'll see some professional holding his semi-automatic with his finger on the trigger as he searches through a warehouse, which, of course, nobody's ever going to do that. It's going to be on the side of the slide, but you'll see that all the time. But
that's right.
But if you'll hold on just a second, Phil will get your name and address, and we'll get that AR-15 magazine out to you.
All right, love the show.
Thank you so much.
And you talk about Hollywood screwing up things. Maybe I'm wrong, but isn't there something about a female 007 that's going to be in a movie coming up?
I think it's coming out.
What is that all about? We got to have
There are a lot of great female roles, but
not James Bond.
Why would you?
What's she going to be? Janet Bond, his sister?
Charlie, I can't tell you this is a typical one. Some crime is being reported, and they say, "Oh, here comes the police chief," and he's coming up to the steps, and the car outside says "Sheriff's Department."
I wonder, we're going to
he's not the police chief; he's the sheriff.
Are we going to have a male Wonder Woman?
Well, I don't know if I
Wonder Woman.
Get into all that kind of stuff. I feel like Rip Van Winkle, who now this is not. I'm going to answer it myself, but Charlie, you've heard the term submachine gun before.
Sure,
I have. Do you know why they're called submachine guns?
Well, sub would imply that it's under something, maybe under your overcoat or something.
It's kind of an under caliber. They fire generally, and none of these things have are in the Bible or in the U.S. government definitions, but a submachine gun fires pistol caliber bullets rather than rifle caliber. And for instance, some of the famous submachine guns are the Thompson submachine gun.
Was that the Tommy gun?
Yeah, the Chicago typewriter. I've got a photo of my father in Iceland in 1942 or 3. He was in the Army with a Thompson, and that's a 45 ACP. And of course, you had the Israeli. I'm losing my train of thought. Uzi, which was a 9mm, pretty famous submachine gun. Of course, the big one now that all the police departments like to get is the Heckler & Koch MP5. You can get that either 9mm, 10mm, or 40 S&W, which means Smith & Wesson, and that just meant that was the original design for that. Another trivia, Charlie, did you know, or viewers, did you know, listeners, did you know that generally every state's constitution requires that a criminal defendant be either acquitted, found not guilty, of course, 12-0 by a jury of 12, unanimous, or convicted 12-0 by a jury of his peers. But there are 2 states that allow juries of less than 12, for instance, 10-2, to convict someone of a felony or to acquit someone of a felony. And those are Louisiana and Oregon. And cases went up, and I think rightly so. The U.S. Supreme Court says the Constitution doesn't speak to us to that. You have to follow your state constitution. And as long as it's kind of an overwhelming ratio like that, that satisfies the constitutional requirements. We've got, the way the country was set up. Right now, everybody, all the politicians are yelling for red flag laws. Well, I don't think they're a good idea, but if the people in New York think they're a good idea, that's their right to pass them or not to pass them, and it doesn't affect me. And if we want to reject those, which we should reject them. By the way, I forgot to say, on this date in history, Krakatoa, speaking of movies, the volcano, which the Disney movie was Krakatoa, east of Java, but it actually was west of Java. But that exploded in 1883, and I think that was one of the largest volcanic explosions. And, it builds up periodically. I'm not sure when, but every a couple hundred years, it blows again. But that's
I think that every politician who promotes taking away guns ought to be the first law should be that they have to post a sign in their front yard saying, "Our home is a gun-free zone."
Yep.
Come on in.
Well, it's when you talk about
and they can't live behind a gated wall.
Yeah, this sounds callous or whatever, but one thing in law, there's something called economics of law that this got Ford Pinto. The Ford Pintos, was it Pinto? It was the Pinto. They were supposedly exploding, and they found a memo that said, well, we can pay out, if we get sued 1 every 1,000 crashes, it's cheaper for us to pay this out
than to replace all those gas tanks.
And it's kind of the same thing. A so-called mass shooting is a high-impact but low-probability event. In fact, your odds of getting killed in a mass shooting are probably much less than being struck by lightning. It doesn't mean you want to go out in the field, when lightning's is hitting all around you and climb up on a telephone pole, but it's not worth, for instance, putting armed guards at every school. Now, if it happens at one time, fine. The best thing to protect yourself from a mass shooting is not red flag laws, it's good guys with guns. I put a video up on our YouTube channel. And by the way, thank you. We're at 1,012 subscribers.
You made it past 1,000.
Yeah, we made it.
All right.
I put a new video up where I said concealed carry holder, but he really wasn't. He was a off-duty employee of a bar in Noonan, Georgia. That's south of Atlanta. Y'all all go past it when you go to Atlanta. And he stopped a mass shooter who came in with a pistol, who was mad about getting thrown out 6 or 8 times. But they had a shootout, and he stopped him. And you will not hear that very often. John Lott is who I picked it up from. You won't hear at the Appalachian Law School, which happened about the same time as the massacre at what was it, in West Virginia, I'll think of it in a second. But Appalachian Law School, 2 students who had guns wrestled the shooter to the ground, as did the shooting at Pearl River, Mississippi High School. Assistant principal had to park his car off campus with his gun. He ran and got his gun and stopped the shooter. That happens a fair amount, but you won't hear it because it does not fit into the narrative. It's just a chance of your child being killed while he's at home, let's say sick at home with a babysitter, is much higher than at a school. Kids drown in buckets, they eat poison, they fall off ladders, all kind of terrible stuff happens. So we can't keep focusing on these, bizarre events and get scared of them. And the media does it. They'll show let's say a bus blow up in Pakistan, and everybody's terrified to get on a bus, which is just, absurd. So you got to be, calm about these things and live your life. Folks, remember, we've got a little time left. This is FM Talk 106.5, the Armed Alabama Show. Call us at 251-343-0106 or watch us on Facebook. That's FM Talk, Armed Alabama Radio, FM Talk 106.5. And we're going to scoot off and say, do a couple of messages, and we'll be right back.
And I want to also, Judge, I'd like to encourage everybody to go to Ace Hardware over on Old Shell Road at McGregor. See if they've replenished the stock of those steel door braces.
Steel door braces. They're great for college kids, too, or travelers.
That's right. They work.
Step up to the firing line. Armed Alabama is back. Questions, comments, and texts at 343-0106.
You want to play rough? Okay. Say hello to my little friend. You want to play rough? Okay. Yeah. Okay. You like that? Huh?
I can't remember what kind of gun Pacino had there. But I know he had the grenade launcher under it. It could have been the M203 had the grenade launcher on them. But he played rough, didn't he?
Yeah. Want to say hello to my little friend?
Oh, yeah. Now, Charlie, here's a good trivia that no contest. I just want to throw it out. The Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife were assassinated in Bosnia, Sarajevo, in fact. And that touched off a series of events that started World War I. He and his wife were killed by a man using a John Browning-designed FM model 1910 and 380 auto. And the interesting thing about that, there were either 7 or 8 assassins along the route. The first 2 got cold feet and didn't do anything. The next assassin lit and threw a bomb at their carriage. It hit Franz Ferdinand's side of the head, bounced behind him, and blew up people in the following carriage. They got to City Hall. The mayor didn't know what happened. Oh, you can see, Archduke, everyone in our city loves you. They're welcome because he had a bomb thrown at him. And when they leave, they take the wrong turn, throw it in reverse to turn right, and there's the assassin with his FN, Fabrique Nationale 380 there, model 1910.
Was it just because of the position that the prince and his wife held?
Yeah.
I mean, was that
his
why they were...
His position was basically, he was heir to the throne. Of course, I think he was 50-something. His uncle, who detested him, was like 81, Joseph. Austria thought it was Austria-Hungary, an interesting kind of empire, Habsburg Empire. They thought they were kind of a lot tougher than they did, and they issued all these demands on Serbia. let our police force investigate it, blah, blah, blah. Serbia agreed to every one of these outrageous demands because Austria-Hungary didn't want them to agree.
So were the assassins Serbian?
They were Serbian. In fact, they say that the one who did it, they were members of a secret group called the Black Hand that the Serbian secret police actually trained. But Serbia's big buddy was Russia. And so, when Serbia said, well, we can do all of these but 9, and Austria said, well, we're going to destroy you. He said, well, you go talk to Russia because they're our friend. Well, everybody mobilized, and the world was never the same, and it was a really pointless war. Out of that war, we got arguably Adolf Hitler came out of the war because the conditions they gave, maniac like that rise. We got Lenin. The Germans purposely sent Lenin to Russia to help throw the Tsar. And we had millions of men killed, for really no good reason.
Well, you were saying during the last break that in Britain more British guys were killed than in World War I than in World War II.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of make an argument that a combination of the Napoleonic Wars and World War I is really what destroyed French manhood. We all laugh when the French, they were heck of a soldiers when Napoleon was there, but they were the best, the bravest were killed then, and in World War I. I mean, just a tremendous number of people.
So was the Foreign Legion pretty good soldiers?
Well, it kind of the Foreign Legion could not operate in France proper. That was
for foreign wars.
Yeah, that was for foreign wars. So it kind of, I think they were. It just kind of depended. Of course, they were fighting a long time in that mess in Algeria, the Civil War. But I mentioned to you when they signed the Versailles Treaty, Field Marshal Ferdinand Foch, the French military leader, said, this isn't peace, it's a 20-year armistice. And that's what they got. Yeah. And, Charlie, you would remember this. Remember when they called it Armistice Day instead of Veterans Day, November 11th. And the I think it was
the 11th day
there
of
you
the
go.
11th month.
Remember, I think it was the VFW.
I was just a boy
handed out
then.
the poppies.
Yeah, I was just a boy then.
And the poppies, it was, I can't think of the whole, on Flanders Field, the poppies, this real wonderful poem about that. But there were so many people killed there, and the poppies, that was a natural place. Not opium poppies, but regular. But that was a big fundraiser. I remember the red poppies. I guess they were, paper or silk or something like that. But it's nice we have a Veterans Day, but it's a shame. That was the war that marked a lot of people's lives.
That was supposed to have been the war to end all wars.
Yeah, the war to end all wars, yeah. Just like the New World Order war, we had Iraq One. Do you know that we have now military bases in 750 countries around the world? Up until World War I, there was a statutory limit. The U.S. Army could not be larger than 50,000 troops. And that'd be in the State of the Union address every year. This year, I'm reporting we have 47,300. They would report things like that.
You realize what, for a small country, if we put a military base in that small country, what impact it has on that little country's economy?
Well, and it has a lot of. They say that we created
jobs,
an empire
payroll.
Much differently than the British. The British would seize it, and we do it by bribery. We pay big payroll, good jobs, but we also, unfortunately, the American culture. Okinawa's had a big problem with this. They don't want their culture destroyed, and we've got so many bases there that it just can't. It just is being destroyed.
I wish the British Empire still existed.
Well, and I'm going to make a lot of people mad.
Where the sun never sets.
You can blame Winston Churchill for it because if you follow his policies and what he did, that he wanted to fight in World War I. World War I basically bankrupted the British Empire, and right after
that's why they let all the colonies go.
Right after World War II, they couldn't get rid of the colonies fast enough, and we've kind of taken their places.
And we're talking Australia, India, Canada, and smaller countries around the world,
all over the place. But we've got them beat now with 750. I think. I don't think they ever had that many. Now I'll give you another one. This isn't for a prize. Just throw it out. who called, General Patton called one gun in particular the greatest battle implement ever devised. And that
is just for fun of it.
Yeah, just for fun. That was the M1 Garand, and some people pronounce it Garand, but that was a man's name, and he actually worked there, I think at Springfield Armory. And if you there were more than that probably, but Americans use the M1 Garand, but also the M1 carbine. M1 Garand is a heck of a big weapon. It fires a 30-06. M1 carbine fires a 30 carbine. They make new M1 carbines now. They're actually a nice kind of home protection gun. Auto Ordnance makes them. And you can buy now self-defense 30 carbine rounds. They're about, if you put it as powerful, as like a 40 caliber or something like that. But they're fun guns. They're much shorter. They don't give you a lot of recoil. In fact, my daughter has one as her self-defense gun. A lot of pretty wood on it, so it doesn't look like a evil assault rifle. And while we're talking about that, I want to thank all of you that helped out with last week. We've got to get the NRA cleaned up, keep it going. And our two guests on there with SaveTheSecond.org, they were great having on here Rob Pincus and Anthony Garcia. And I'll put up more information, time goes by about that. But next month is when they have their board meeting in Alaska. You know, that to me shows a detachment from reality. You know, I would say can we save the money? We got a big election coming. Let's all meet either in Washington or some central location.
Do they realize the media is in Alaska also?
Yeah, they can get there pretty easy by doing that. So,
Judge, I wanted to say one other thing. I've enjoyed being with you this hour, and the other thing is that you have a really fine group of quality sponsors that everybody ought to go to and buy their goods and services.
No question about it.
Keep them affiliated with this show and keep this show
right
on the
now,
radio.
If your air conditioning breaks down, you need it fast, call Hanson's Heating and Air. If you need an alarm, Hunter Security. We've talked about the Ace Hardware stores, Spring Hill,
Ward's
Creola,
Liberty Safe,
Moffett Road, and then Mike Ward's Liberty Safe. I'll tell you one reason you need a safe is hurricane season now. Let's say you decide to leave your house.
Protect those documents.
Yeah, and we'll be back next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. with more of Armed Alabama as we are every week. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next Tuesday night.